So we're going to be learning how to program using a language called Python. And one of the tools that we can use to program Python is something called Google Colab. There are a lot of programs, but for our purpose, Google Colab is a good tool to use. So I'm Googling this, and when I go into Google Colab, I'll go to the site. I've already been using mine, so mine is going to look a little bit different from yours. I'm going to cancel out of this. This is just a list of programs that I've been working with already. I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of this. And this is the screen that I get. So for Google Colab, what you'll need is a Gmail account, a Google Gmail account. There's a reason for that, is because when you have a Google account, it automatically comes with a place where you can store your programs at, a Google Drive. So, Gmail account, try to use Chrome. I haven't used this with other web browsers, but you should go download Chrome if you don't have it already. And when I get here, there's some getting started stuff that's in here and other things that you should look over, but I'm going to walk you through just the basics. And so to start a new program, what I'm going to do is create a new notebook. And I may refer to this as a Jupyter notebook. But I'm going to go to File, New, Notebook. When I do, it comes up and gives me this screen. Eventually. A little slow today. Okay. So, this is a place where I can write some of my code, and it will save it for me. The default name for this notebook that I've created is Untitled, maybe 1, 2, 3, or whichever one you're currently working on. You can rename this at any time. So I'll double click on that, and I'll just call this one Practice. Now the period there, and then there's a name for this. So I've called this file Practice, and this is an IPython, PY for Python, NB for notebook. So it's a Python notebook. Take a minute to look around, and you'll see that in the middle here is some place where I can type information. It's got a little button here where I can run the cell. So this little piece right here is called a cell. If I want to, I can make a second cell at any time. And when I make these cells, this is a place where I can write code, or I can just write information. In this case, I can write some code in here, or I can just do simple things like, let's say 4 plus 4. And when I run the cell, it outputs the result of that. And again, I'm a little slow here, but it outputs 8. So, like a calculator. 5, and then asterisk, which is what I use for multiplication, times 5. And when I run this, I'll click the little run here, it says 25. Okay, so in this cell, I can write mathematical formulas, I can write computer code, I can put a lot of stuff in here. A word of warning before I go any further is that I'm going to be using terms which you may not have heard before. just bear with me and just kind of follow along. Um, these terms may be new to you, but as we go along, as we practice and look at how things work, hopefully you'll get used to the terms, and we'll be able to proceed from there. Okay, so let me clear the output for that. So let me put in some Python code. So in Python, if I want to display things to the screen, what I can do is I can say print, and then I put in the opening parentheses, and it automatically puts in the ending parentheses. You notice as I go along, it tells me what this is. This may seem Greek for now, but it's really telling you what this print statement does. It's going to take whatever's inside of these parentheses and output that information. So if I said print 9, and then multiplication would be asterisk 10, and then division would be a slash, and divide by 2. So this print statement is saying, print whatever's between these parentheses, but before you do, go ahead and make the calculation. So here I've got 9 times 10, and then divided by 2. So this should evaluate to be 90, and then I'm going to divide that by 2, and when I run the cell, it outputs 45. Now, an important point to make is that it doesn't say just 95, or it doesn't say just 45. It says 45.2. 0.0, sorry. This will be important later, but I'm trying to make a distinction between the number 45 and the number 45.0. So I'm going to clear the output from this cell, and I'm going to create a new cell, and it's going to be code or programming code. So this is a programming cell. If I wanted to, I could make a text cell. If I added a text cell, what I can do is that I can type in here whatever I want, and this is just so when you have your entire program, you can put in comments as you go along. Okay, so that's a text cell, and you can change the font, you can change whether it's italicized, or there's a lot of things you can do. So we don't need that yet, so I'm going to go ahead and delete this cell. But I'll go down, create a new code cell. By the way, there's several ways to do this. I can go up here and create a new code cell. I can go down here and create a new code cell. There are control keys or combinations on the keyboard I can use to create a new cell. So here's my new cell. Here's the first cell that I created, and here's the new cell. And what I'm going to do now is I've copied some code. I'm going to go ahead and paste that in here. Now, you don't need to understand the code for now. This is just an example I'm using. So this is a Python program. And let me explain how this works. Is that this first line up here, I've created something called a variable name. And it's just a name that I create so I can hold information. It's like a bucket where I can save information. So I've created a name called hourly underscore wage. Now, the reason I put the underscore in there is because when I create these names, I can't put a space in there. If I try to put a space in there, let me see if it will. If I try to just put a space in the name, when I run this cell, it will kick out an error message that says hourly wage, and then it says there's a syntax error, invalid syntax, which means you can't do this. So I'll clear that out. So I have to hit, when I create a name, I need to make sure there are no spaces in there. And then there's this equal sign in here. This red squiggly line will go away now that let me click off of that. Well, it will go away. But I've got an equal sign in here. And this equal sign says take whatever's on the right of the equal sign and store it into this bucket that I've called hourly wage. So now hourly wage is really the number 20. Okay. So I can, let me prove that to you. Let me get rid of this for a second. So now if I say print, which means display to the screen, and then inside of the parentheses, print the hourly wage. Okay. Okay, and now when I run this, it prints what is stored in the hourly wage, which is the value 20. Okay. So if I were to change that, to 45, let me clear the output. If I were to change that to 45, now if I say print or display to the screen, whatever's stored in hourly wage, it would now print 45. Okay, so this is just a handy bucket. I create names that where I want to save information. So why not just use the number 45? And that's because we want to be able to change those numbers as we go through. Hourly wage may be 45 at one time, and later on the hourly wage may be 15. So this way I can change whatever I can change the value that I'm storing into this variable name that I created. Now variable names are, you can make them whatever you want. You want them to describe the information that they're storing. Okay. Now, when I put in 15, you notice that I didn't, if this is $15 an hour, maybe euros an hour, it may be euros per week. So I have to just know what that is. If I try to put in a $sign in front of that, when I run this, it'll throw an error at me because it doesn't want the $sign there. I just want the number by itself. Okay. Okay. So my red squiggly line should have disappeared by now. All right. So let me go ahead and put this stuff back. Okay. So my print statements, what I can do is that I can print and I'm going to put the print statement here, and now I'm going to use single quotes. I can use double quotes, but I can also use single quotes. So on your keyboard you'll see you've got a key where you can type in either the double quotes or single quotes. Well, here I'm going to put in single quotes. And now I can type in between those single quotes um, anything I want. I can type in anything there. Anything except for another single quote, then it'd be a little confused by that. So what my print statement says right now is it says print to the screen anything in this that's between these parentheses, and print literally anything between this beginning single quote and this ending single quote. So I can put anything I want between those single quotes. So when I run this, it will print whatever I put between those single quotes. Okay, so that's another thing that the print statement does. All right, I'll get rid of that. And clear my output. Okay, I'll put this back now. So that's what this is doing. I'm saying print the annual salary. And so it's going to print literally whatever's between those single quotes. Now, on the next line, so this is one statement. This is one programming statement. On the next programming statement, I'm going to say, take whatever's stored in the hourly wage and multiply it, I'm using the asterisk, by 40. And 40, in this case, is going to be the number of hours per week. And then multiply that. So the hourly wage times the number of hours per week. And then I'm going to multiply that by the number of weeks. Apparently they're only working 50 weeks a year. And then it's going to print that number out. Now, there's another print statement down here, but all that does is print a blank line. And that's so it's more easily readable when it prints out. So print out annual salary is, colon, and then do this calculation. Print whatever stored in the hourly wage, multiply it by 40, and then multiply that by 50 weeks. Okay. And I'm just guessing that this is 40 hours per week and 50 weeks per year. It's supposed to be the annual salary, so that would make sense. Okay, and then it says the monthly salary is. And in this case, it takes the hourly wage, multiplies that by 40 hours a week, and then multiplies that by 50. So basically the same calculation I had before for the annual salary, but in this case I'm going to take that annual salary, which is this calculation right here, and you notice these are all inside of parentheses. Whatever's inside of parentheses, it's going to calculate first. So this is inside of parentheses. It's going to calculate this first. And then my division, it's got division by 1 here. Okay, well, that didn't make any sense. Make more sense to have it divided by 12 months. Okay, so before I run this cell, see if that makes sense. I'm setting the hourly wage. I'm saying the annual salary is the number of hours times the number of hours per week times the number of weeks per year. And then it's going to say the monthly salary is, in this case, I'm going to get the annual salary and then divide that by 12. So annual salary divided by 12 is going to give you the monthly salary. So before I run this, see if you can imagine what the output is going to look like. So I'll go ahead and run this. And it says the annual salary is, and you notice it doesn't put in commas in here. So this says the hourly wage is 15, so the annual salary is 30,000. You notice it doesn't automatically put in the commas for you, and then excuse me. So it gives you the annual salary, it gives you the monthly salary. Later on, we will format these so we can output it so it says $30,000 with commas and decimal places and all that. We can format it so it looks nice and readable later on. But for now, here's the basics. And this is a big bulk of the programming, is just doing stuff like this. So we set up a variable, we assign some value to it, and then we say print or display this information to the screen. You notice it didn't print hourly wage equals 15 when I ran this. I need a command that says display this information, which is the print statement. So print or display this information to the screen, print, and then inside the print I have a calculation, and then I've got a print statement which is just a blank line. And then it comes down here and says the monthly salary is, and remember these have to be inside of double quotes. If it's not a calculation or variable or something like that, we need to have single or double quotes around it. And then we do the calculation here and another blank line. And that's the basics. I'm going to go ahead and pause that here. First, I want to show you that before we leave, if you want, it says all changes have been saved to to your Python notebook file. If you want to make sure, you can do File, and you can save a copy by a different name into your Google Drive. You can save it to something called GitHub. You can rename this notebook. So you've got a lot of choices here. But in this program, I've got 2 cells. And this one, I really don't need anymore. If I wanted to, I could just delete this first cell. And then I've got my 1 cell here. Let me show you one more thing before I go. So I'm going to create another cell. And so here's another cell. I'm going to create, up here we've got this calculation, hourly wage times whatever. Okay, how about if I create a variable? And when I create a variable, I want to start off with lowercase letters, just kind of a tradition. You can make it whatever you want, but tradition. So I'm going to call a variable ANNUAL underscore salary. So that's a variable name that I just created. And what I'm going to assign to it is this calculation right here. Let me copy that and paste that down here. And there's a couple reasons I want to show you this. So there's my annual salary. I'm going to create another variable called monthly salary, and I'm going to assign to that variable name the annual, press the tab key to complete that, annual salary divided by 12. Okay, so do you see what I'm doing there? So I'm going to print out my annual, let's see if it picks it, there it is, annual salary. You notice that I can see it's suggesting that I'm trying to type in annual salary, so I'll press the tab key and it completes that for me. and then I'm going to print the monthly. There it is. Press the tab key to complete. Okay. I'm going to clear this output. Okay. So down here in the second cell, I've created a variable that takes the information from this first cell and calculates the annual salary. And again, from the first cell, I'm going to take the annual salary and divide it by 12 and give the monthly salary. Okay. Now, in a Jupyter notebook, I can run these cells individually. And then once I've ran those cells, they will stay in memory. The results of those will stay in memory. So now everything I ran in this cell knows that it's there. It knows that what the hourly wage is. It knows, well, that's really all it needs to know in there. So when I run this one, it should print out the annual salary and print out the monthly salary. So I'll run this, and it prints out the annual salary and the monthly salary. Okay. Okay, let me see. Is there anything else that I need to go over in this? We've got it saved. Next time you go into your Google Colab account, you'll see this is one of the files that you can pull up and make changes to, or whatever else you need. But this is a good place to practice your Python as you go through and start learning how to code. You can practice your Python here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up and leave it there.